They buried her sister in silence. Now, Lydia's returning home to unearth the truth thorn by thorn, secret by secret. My name is Lydia Holloway, and if I could go back to when I was 9, I'd tell that little girl to things when you're not crazy too. You're not the mistake they said you were, but back then I didn't know either of those things. All I knew was that dinner always looked different on my plate than on anyone else's. My sister Cassidy, the so-called miracle child, had mashed potatoes with butter shaped like flowers, steak that melted off the bone, and fresh peach slices in a glass bowl chilled with ice. I got dry toast and boiled cabbage. When I asked why, my mom said because Cassidy needs the energy. You're just you. I wanted to believe that maybe they didn't mean it, that maybe I was just imagining things, but then came the night. Everything broke literally. I was 13. I'd just come back from the school library where I stayed late because I couldn't stand being home. The air always felt heavy there, like I was walking on a floor that might collapse any second. I stepped inside and smelled it immediately. Steak. My stomach growled so loud I almost laughed. Cassidy was already at the table, a full spread in front of her, medium rare filet, garlic, asparagus, cornbread, muffins. I walked into the kitchen and saw my plate already waiting. One piece of bread, not even toasted, a smear of mayo on it. That was it. Where's the rest? I asked, too tired to pretend anymore. Dad was standing near the sink. He didn't like being questioned ever. He turned. You asking that with your tone? I blinked. It's not fair. Why does Cassidy get steak and I get this? Cassidy giggled. Maybe because I don't look like a drowned rat. My mom didn't flinch, but Dad, he stormed forward like he'd been waiting for that moment. He didn't yell, he didn't threaten. He grabbed my hand, slammed it onto the countertop, and with the other hand he picked up the rusted hammer from the junk drawer. Cassidy kept chewing. My mom didn't move. Then crack. I think I left my body. Another crack. I heard my own voice screaming, but I didn't feel it. I saw my fingers bending wrong, swelling. The bruising was immediate. Purple lightning crawling under my skin. Dad leaned in and whispered, "Ask that again, I dare you." Then he dropped the hammer like it was nothing. I dropped to the floor. Cassidy finished her cornbread. No hospital, no apology, no punishment. That night they locked me in the basement with an old ice pack and a wet rag. My fingers throbbed, mangled and crooked, wrapped in a dish towel that reeked of bleach. I spent the night shaking, whispering to myself to stay alive, not out of fear, but out of fury. That was the night I changed. My fingers healed wrong. No doctor ever looked at them. They've never been straight since. And Cassidy, she bragged about how tough love makes weak things stronger, but here's what they didn't know: pain like that rewires you. It turns every scar into a blueprint. They thought I'd break and disappear. I didn't. Instead, I watched. I stayed silent. I let them forget me, and that was their first mistake because I started paying attention. Dad had a routine. He left the house every Sunday night at 6:30 sharp, said it was church board business, but never came back smelling like hymns. Mom had her own secrets, like sneaking into the school office after hours. She worked there part-time and rifled through donation funds. Cassidy was their darling, but she had more enemies than friends. She wasn't smart, just loud, not talented, just privileged. And I was the invisible shadow, but shadows learn how light works. By the time I turned 16, I had read more than most adults ever will. I volunteered at the school theater to avoid home, learned stage lighting, set design, even how to run cables and speakers. I took notes about everything, and I started working at an animal shelter on Saturdays. That's where I met Donna. Donna was in her 60s, ran the shelter like a military base, but had eyes that knew too much. One afternoon, she saw my hand trembling as I picked up a dish bin. "What happened to your fingers?" she asked gently. I opened my mouth, closed it, then shrugged. "Family recipe," I muttered. She didn't push, but 2 weeks later, she handed me a folder. Inside state documentation, emancipation paperwork, housing referrals, and 3 numbers to call if I ever needed a place to go. "You didn't ask," she said, "but I see everything." I didn't cry. I wanted to, but I didn't. Instead, I folded the papers, tucked them into my backpack. I wasn't ready yet, but soon I would be, because revenge wasn't a sudden explosion. It was slow, careful, silent. And it would come not with a scream, but with a smile. I stayed 2 more years in that house, even after the hammer, even after the splintered fingers, the locked basement, and the nights I slept with one eye open while Cassidy paraded around like a pageant queen, because I was planning every second, every step. It started quietly. Donna got me a spot volunteering at the local radio station. "She's good with wires," she told the manager, and just like that I was behind the board on weekends adjusting Faders testing mix, learning how sound worked, how voices could be amplified, how silence could be recorded. I didn't just learn how to mix, I learned how to listen. My dad's lies were always the same: church board, late meetings, work calls, but I knew where he actually went: the truck yard on Old Marlin Road. I once followed him on foot for over an hour just to confirm it. There he met with men in expensive boots, talked in hushed tones, and loaded boxes into the back of unmarked vans. But I wasn't interested in his deals, I was interested in what he feared, and that turned out to be reputation. He was running for deacon at his church, all smiles and fake prayers, shaking hands like he hadn't used them to destroy mine. Cassidy was filming cutesy TikToks about family values and dinner nights with daddy and my mom. She was now PTA president and stealing funds from field trip envelopes. They were building a legacy of lies, and I would burn it with something better than fire. Truth. Lydia Holloway woke before the sun, as she always did, in the small back room of the flower shop she now called home. The smell of lavender and soil clung to her skin like memories she couldn't shake off. In the stillness of morning, she moved with the precision of someone used to silence, as if the creaking floorboards beneath her feet might awaken the past she so carefully buried. 6 years had passed since she fled Lexington Heights, but its ghost had followed her to this quiet street in Charleston. Every morning began with the ritual black coffee in a chip mug, the one thing she salvaged from her mother's kitchen, followed by 30 minutes of sitting in silence, her mind rehearsing names, dates, and betrayals. She was no longer the timid girl who'd once stared through wrought iron gates at the Hollister estate. She was 32 now, hardened by abandonment, sharpened by secrets, and fueled by something deeper than vengeance: clarity. Her hands, once delicate and unsure, now shaped arrangements with meticulous artistry. People mistook her work for tenderness. They never saw the messages buried in her bouquets, the thorns trimmed just so, the poppies mixed with oleander. When she opened Holloway Blooms at 9 sharp, Lydia's lips curved into the smile she had perfected in front of a mirror. Customers trickled in with the usual banter. She gave them daisies, lilies, and lies. Nobody knew who she really was or what she had left behind. And that was the point. It wasn't until noon that the tremor hit her fingers. She was rearranging a sympathy bouquet when the bell over the door chimed. She didn't look up, not until she heard the voice. "You always did hate tulips, didn't you?" Lydia froze. The clippers in her hand trembled. Her eyes rose slowly. There he was, Gabriel Hollister, broad-shouldered, clean-shaven, tailored like he'd stepped out of a courtroom. His voice hadn't changed, it still had the power to gut her like a blade dipped in honey. "I didn't expect you to come in here," she said evenly. "I didn't expect to find you here," he replied, stepping closer. "I thought you were in Milan, or was it Montreal the last time someone whispered your name in a bar?" Lydia smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "You've been keeping tabs." "Everyone has," he said. "You vanished, Lydia, after what happened." "Don't," she snapped. He stopped. The air between them thickened with unspoken names. His brother, her sister. The night everything shattered. "I didn't come to fight," he said more softly. "I came because my father is dying." Lydia turned away. "And you think I care?" "He's asking for you." She paused. The old man had once told her she wasn't good enough to shine his silverware, that she was a distraction, a liability, a leftover. And now he wanted to see her. Gabriel stepped forward. "It's about your sister." That name cracked something inside her, but she masked it. "Get out." He didn't move. "You should know what happened." Lydia turned, eyes blazing. "I know what happened. I buried what was left of her." "And you?" "You married into silence." He flinched. "I'm not the same girl, Gabriel, and I don't forgive ghosts." He reached into his coat, pulled out a photograph, and placed it on the counter. A little girl with familiar green eyes stared back at her, holding a paper daisy. "Her name's Mira," he said. "She's 6. She's your niece." Lydia's world tilted. Her breath caught in her throat. "She needs to know the truth, Lydia. And so do you." Then he left. The photograph sat on the counter like a ticking bomb. That night, Lydia locked up early. She poured herself 2 fingers of whiskey and stood in front of the mirror. Her reflection stared back with a haunted calm. The past had found her, and this time, she wouldn't run. She picked up the photograph again, tracing the edges. Her sister's eyes, her father's chin, somewhere in Lexington Heights. Answers waited. So did danger. She packed a single bag. No more flowers. No more silence. The daughter they discarded was going home. The air in Lexington Heights was sharper than she remembered. Colder, like the town itself knew she didn't belong anymore. Lydia stepped out of the cab in front of the Hollister estate. The mansion that once looked like a dream, carved in stone, now felt like a mausoleum. Its white pillars, ivy-choked archways, and wrought iron gates loomed over her like judgment incarnate. She hadn't told anyone she was coming. Gabriel hadn't needed confirmation. He knew her well enough to know she'd show up eventually. Not for their father, not even for Gabriel, but for the girl in that photograph. Mira. Lydia clenched, the photo still tucked inside her coat pocket as the gates creaked open. The housekeeper who answered the door did a double take. "Miss Holloway?" she whispered. Lydia offered a tight nod. "Tell Gabriel I'm here." She was led through the grand hallway, where chandeliers still sparkled like nothing had ever broken, and portraits lined the walls like sentinels of the past. Her eyes lingered on one, Gabriel Everett, and their father, James Hollister. The same picture that once hung in the town courthouse was a symbol of legacy and power. Everett's smile in that photo was the same one he gave her the night everything burned down. "He's in the sunroom," the housekeeper murmured. Gabriel looked up as she entered. His expression was unreadable, part relief, part regret. "I thought you'd come tomorrow." "I didn't want a parade," Lydia replied. He gestured toward the seat across from him, beside a glass table holding a porcelain teapot she remembered too well. Their mother used it for afternoon gatherings, gossip and gin dressed as civility. Gabriel poured her tea. She didn't drink. "I told Mira you might come," he said. "You shouldn't have. She's smart. She's already asking questions." Lydia leaned back, eyes scanning the garden beyond the glass, overgrown and wild, the way her sister used to love it, their secret place. "I need to see her," Lydia said softly. "You will. But first, my father. He's not the man you remember. I'm sure he isn't. Men like him rarely remember the people they destroy." Gabriel's jaw clenched. "He kept things from you. Things about Emily, about what happened that night." Lydia's eyes narrowed. You don't get to rewrite the story now because guilt finally found you." He handed her an envelope. Inside were medical reports, DNA tests, one name circled in red ink. Lydia's heart thundered. She reread it. Everett Hollister, not the biological father of Mira Hollister. Her breath hitched. "What is this?" Gabriel looked away. Emily was planning to leave. She'd found someone else. She was pregnant before Everett ever found out. Who? We don't know. But Everett did. He found out the night she died. Lydia's blood turned to ice. "You think?" Gabriel nodded. "I think Everett knew the truth, and I think that's why Emily died." Silence swallowed them. "Why are you telling me this now?" Lydia asked. "Because you're the only one who ever loved her for who she was. You deserve to know. And because Mira is in danger." Lydia stared at him. "Danger from who?" Gabriel hesitated. Then, "Our father. He wants full custody." She stood abruptly. No, that child is all that's left of Emily. He doesn't get to twist her the way he twisted everything else." "Then help me stop him," Gabriel said. Lydia looked out at the wild garden again. Her fists clenched. The past hadn't just come knocking. It had kicked the door down. The sun hadn't yet risen when Lydia crossed the state line into Kentucky. Morning. Fog clung to the blacktop like the past to her memory, thick, slow, inescapable. The air turned cooler the closer she drove to Lexington Heights. The roads more familiar, the trees older and knotted like the secrets buried beneath them. She hadn't returned in 6 years, not since the funeral that turned her world to ash. The last time she saw the Hollister estate, she'd been wearing a borrowed black dress and holding her sister's locket in her fist so tightly it had left a scar. Now, she wore leather gloves and a face void of tears. Lexington Heights looked the same, but the town had learned how to whisper more quietly. Lydia could feel it in the sideways glances from the bakery window, in the way gas station attendants paused mid-swipe when they caught her eyes. No one said her name, but they all knew it. That was the thing about small towns, memories aged slower, And forgiveness came even slower than that. The Hollister estate rose out of the fog like a memory that refused to die. It still wore its ivy like a crown, the stone fought untouched by time, arrogant in its permanence. Lydia parked at the edge of the circular driveway, far from the marble lions flanking the stairs. The heavy oak door opened before she could knock. Gabriel, he didn't say anything at first, just looked at her the way one might look at a ghost. In an old photograph, equal parts awe and regret. "You came," he said quietly. "Don't read into it," she replied, brushing past him into the house that had once treated her like an infection. The entryway smelled like polished wood and dying roses. Portraits of ancestors glared down from the walls. Lydia could still remember being 12 and deliberately scuffing the floor with her boots just to see if someone would say something. They always did. "Your father's upstairs," Gabriel said, leading the way. "He's not well. I'm not here to comfort him," she said sharply. "I didn't ask you to." They passed the library, the one where her sister used to sneak in and steal poetry books, the one where Lydia overheard the Hollisters making plans that never included her. Gabriel paused outside a heavy mahogany door. "Before you go in," he might not remember everything clearly. "I remember enough for both of us," she said, pushing the door open. The man in the bed barely resembled the patriarch who once owned Hollister Holdings with an iron fist and a silver tongue. His skin hung like parchment, his eyes milky with time. And yet, when they landed on Lydia, something inside them flickered. "You came," he rasped. Lydia didn't answer. He lifted a trembling hand. "She looked just like you, Elise." The name hit her like ice water. Her sister's ghost still haunted every syllable. "Why did you ask for me?" Lydia said, voice tight. Because I failed her, and I failed you." His breath hitched. "You need to know the truth. Elise didn't kill herself." Lydia's spine straightened. "What did you just say?" He coughed violently, then gasped. "It was never suicide. It was a cover, a deal gone wrong. She found out too much." Lydia stepped forward. "Found out what?" He opened his mouth, but the words never came. His heart monitor let out one long, flat note. Gabriel rushed in from the hallway. "No, Dad, but..." It was too late. Lydia stood frozen, her fists clenched, the confession hanging in the air like smoke. She had come for truth, and she'd arrived just a heartbeat too late. Outside, a child's laughter echoed from the garden. Lydia turned toward the sound. She would start with Mira, because if Elise hadn't jumped, someone had pushed her, and Lydia Holloway had come home to find out who. The Hollister estate hadn't changed. The iron gates were still cold, the manicured lawns still surgically perfect, and the mansion loomed like a judgment Lydia never asked for. But this time, she didn't stand outside it. She walked through the gates with her head high, the photograph of Mira folded in her coat pocket like a secret weapon. Gabriel met her at the steps. No words, just a nod, and a glance that said everything he didn't expect her to actually come. Inside, the house smelled of old mahogany, lemon polish, and something sterile. Death lingered in the hallways. Lydia followed Gabriel in silence until they reached a study. A fire crackled in the hearth, too alive for a room so full of dying things. Then she saw him, Jonathan Hollister, propped up in a velvet chair like a relic no one dared to discard. His face was drawn, his hands skeletal. The man who once called her filth and silk looked like a whisper now. "Lydia," he rasped, his eyes struggling to focus. "You came." She didn't approach. "You asked for me. Make it worth it." He gave a wheezy chuckle. "Still fire in you." Gabriel stood to the side, arms crossed. Jonathan gestured weakly. "The truth. About your sister. About that night." Lydia didn't move. She didn't breathe. She didn't overdose, he said. Lydia blinked. "What?" She was silenced. The room spun. She found out about the offshore accounts, about the shell companies. "I used to move money, and your father's construction firm was the front." Lydia's knees nearly buckled. She threatened to go public. Jonathan continued, coughing violently. "I told her to shut it down, but she was too much like you. Too much heart, too much damn truth." Lydia's voice was barely a whisper. So you had her killed? Jonathan's eyes glazed. Gabriel didn't know. He still doesn't believe it. But I ordered it cleaned. Quick. Painless. Gabriel exploded. You what? I couldn't let it destroy the family. You destroyed everything. Lydia shouted. You think telling me this now absolves you? Jonathan leaned back, breath shallow. No, I just wanted to see her eyes again. Before they closed, Lydia stood frozen. Rage, sorrow, and betrayal churned in her chest like a storm. Gabriel looked gutted. The illusion of his family shattered. Lydia turned. I'm leaving, and I'm taking Mira. Jonathan coughed blood into a silk napkin. She's better off with you. Gabriel didn't stop her. Back in Charleston, Lydia stood on the porch of Holloway Blooms. Mira sat beside her, legs swinging off the step, hugging a teddy bear. Are you my aunt? Mira asked. Wide-eyed, Lydia smiled softly. I am, and you're everything good your mother ever left behind. Mira leaned against her. Will I stay here now? Lydia wrapped an arm around the child. If you want to, this can be home. The sun dipped below the rooftops. A gentle breeze stirred the petals in the window display. Lavender and oleander, life and danger, truth and beauty. For the first time in years, Lydia felt still. She had walked through the fire and emerged carrying the future in her arms. The daughter they discarded had returned not for revenge, but for redemption.